are typing. Remember, guys, I really appreciate you participating, and feel free, since everybody's on mute right now, to jump in and ask questions. This is a third part of our four-part series, and we're going to talk about the accounting in MaxxTraxx. And we are talking about some significant differences between MotorTraxx and MaxxTraxx from the perspective of the daily book. Daily book in MotorTraxx, daily sales in MaxxTraxx. And I say this because this was a really difficult thing for me to learn in the beginning, because I was using the entire accounting program. And I also, of course, was a person who would be there till 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, if that's what it took to close my daily book. What's nice about MaxxTraxx is we no longer have that. Everything that goes into this daily sales report, let me just show you a sample. This tracks all of our sales numbers for the day, and this is where we balance our drawer. All this information that flows into this daily sales and cash drawer report is in real time, and nothing is being batched. So just with that said, let me show you something. I'm going to cancel out of here. If we were to open up a repair order and we were to post and pay this, I'm going to show you just to pay, and I'm going to kind of skip these warnings right now, and we're going to pay this with a Visa. I want to show you something. Every time you cash out a customer and you click finish, and I got my marketing, which I'm going to skip, what just happened is that actually just showed up. If I do my daily sales through today, which it may bark at me because it doesn't want me always to do daily sales through today, and I go over to my balance drawer, that Visa is right here. It just showed up, 8/18. Here it is. Okay, so whether or not I click it in this daily sales report, and I'm just kind of jumping around a bit, and we'll go through this slowly, but I wanted to show you this shows up in real time. But without me processing a daily sales report in MotorTraxx language, more like a daily book, without me processing everything, that automatically shows up in my system. I'm jumping up on banking. I'm going to go down to my Make Bank Deposit. I'm going to select the checking account. Doesn't matter at this point which one. And here is that Visa that I just posted. So what's different about MotorTraxx versus MaxxTraxx is everything that you do in MaxxTraxx is in real time. So there is no daily book to post. This actually shows up as is an item to go in my banking to make a bank deposit now. The difference is that you actually have to put this money that we just took in just now, just today, we have to make a deposit to tell it which bank account it goes into. So that is a difference between MotorTraxx and MaxxTraxx, where in MotorTraxx you would batch your day, and remember you would say drop from drawer to box and box to safe, or safe to bank. I think that's the way it went. So you could make a drop to the bank. That actually we do still do in MaxxTraxx, but a couple of things. You can do it for any date you want. You could go back, see, look at all these. I could actually go back and take this Visa payment that I received June 17th. I can select it. I can click next, and I can deposit it in my system as of June 17th. See the date up here? Because, and it's a little bit of technical speak, but what we've done in MaxxTraxx is everything is a teeny tiny little packet of information that sits on a SQL database. So it doesn't have to ever be batched. We can tell it to go where we want it to go on whatever date we want it to do, whatever date we want it to go. Number one. And number two, we can always void it. Even if it happened last week, last month, last year, we can void it and repost it for a different amount, a different date, whatever it needs to be. Again, because we have SQL technology, which you guys know in MotorTraxx. If you ever wanted to go back and change something that you see. So now I can actually hit post and close. Okay, I'm going to start over, but I just wanted to show you I wanted to show you how this happens in real time. So how are we doing on audio? Can you guys hear me okay? Can I get a little feedback?
Yeah,
okay.
I can hear you fine.
Okay. Everything's good.
Okay, guys. So let me tell you what my daily workflow was in MaxxTraxx. So at the end of the day, don't forget, as we're cashing out these customers, it's just dumping all this stuff into our financials, into our income and expense statement. It's dumping payments received into what we call undeposited funds that under banking sits in this bucket called Make Bank Deposit, and these are all my undeposited funds, okay? So what I would do at the end of the day, I would take all my, you guys can visualize this, I'm sure you do it all the time, take all my checks, I put them in a pile, I take all my Visa slips, put them in a pile, I segment everything out, I do count my cash drawer, go into the daily sales through here, and what happens, the way that this is set up, if you guys do this every day, these starting and end date will default. It'll be one day at a time. And then I just click OK, and here, for example, if this were one day, this would be your sales numbers. In reality, I probably look at this for 2 milliseconds, see that I had a decent day, and get right to balancing my drawer, because this is very similar to your daily book closing. Now, what happens is if you have this set up correctly, you're going to have a beginning cash and drawer number that you're not going to have to manually enter. I just did because this is a practice version, a demo version, and once you set this, it always will carry over once you close and print this report to cash left in tomorrow. But we'll look at this. Okay, so what happens is first thing I do, the computer is saying, okay, Sabrina, I counted as your computer $551.96. So then I would actually go and count my cash on hand, my paper and my coins, and I would put $551.96. Now let's say, you know what, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I only have $531.96. Well, I know right here these don't match, and I'm going to be over, and I'm going to be short over here. And my amount over and short would show up 20 bucks less. And we'll get there in a minute. But before I even go any further, I'd go around and say, hey, guys, somebody grab a 20 out of the till, because in the shop that I worked in, we actually did a lot of cash drawer transactions. We, put gas in people's vehicles if we had to do test drives and that kind of thing for a drivability issue, car washes, lunch for the guys, too many IOUs, employee advances. So at this point, if my numbers were off here, I can click on this details button. And for the time period that I have selected for this daily sales report, this is going to say, okay, Sabrina, you took in an invoice for 139 bucks. Let's see, you avoided an invoice, so that doesn't matter anymore. You paid out. Let's see, oh, no, let's see, this is another invoice, cash payment, but we're alternating days. That's why they alternated colors. And I took in 200 bucks. Let's say I took a deposit on account from Jonathan so-and-so, Altman, for $100. And let's see, somebody paid me cash for an AR payment. So this is telling me all the cash that I took in. So let's say, I'm supposed to be 20 bucks off. I would go into my cash drawer, which theoretically, if anybody takes cash out of your drawers during the day, they would actually go up to this cash drawer money bag, and they would log that money being paid out. Let's see what it looks like. So from within the daily sales report, luckily we can do it. So if I click on cash drawer, I have a cash paid out. So I'm going to click on cash paid out, and it was paid to, let's say it was, Union 76. And maybe it was an RO number. I don't know. And maybe it's just gas for, Altman, let's say Altman truck for extended test drive. I mean, how many times does that happen? People drop off their vehicle on E, and it was 20 bucks. I'm going to put under my GL account, this was fuel for customer vehicles. Now, guys, this list, it comes with, I think, 3 or 4 default in the system, but this is completely customizable. And if you guys ever have questions on how to set this up, I'm going to have a knock out a video in about probably 2-3 weeks. That's going to show you how to add these items to this list. But if you need to know how, just give us a call. We'll show you how to do it. But in this case, it's fuel for customer vehicle and date paid. Let's say actually it was yesterday. My receipt says yesterday, and I click finish. So now I'm going to cancel out of here. I'm all done with my money bag. So here, see, it just went from 551 to 531. So now when I put my 531.96, because that's what I just counted in my cash drawer, it matches. Okay, I'm going to stop and ask questions. This is a little bit convoluted, and we do have a really good training video for this on the website. But any questions at this point, guys, on what I just did? Okay, I'm going to keep moving on. So then what you do after you count your cash and put in your counted amount, it actually shows up over here under counted amounts as counted cash. So I would go in and, remember I said I made a stack of checks? Well, I would double click on this or highlight it and click the details button and say, yep, I got a check here for 211, perfect, click OK. And again, like I said, you can highlight it and click the details, or I'm just going to double click. On this Discover, I'm going to double click. Say, yep, I have a receipt for one Discover, good, good, and double click. Yep, I got all these visas. I'm going to click Select All. And of course, AR charges and credit used are not payments you would have in your hand, right? So you would only reconcile and count, make sure these are correct. Because remember, here's computed, here's counted. And look, it automatically, under my counted amount section here on the right, put it in my counted checks total, which at this point, I typically would fill out my deposit slip as well. I would list, in my deposit slips, I list the customer's name and put in the amount. Here is what my counted credit debit cards total is. This, by the way, guys, should match your batch. You know when you hit your batch report button on your credit card machine at the end of the day? That should match this number. So what this is saying is this daily sales and cash flow report is saying I physically did this count. I counted my cash, my checks, my credit cards. This is my total amount counted for today. And hopefully it should never say amount over or short for today. It should never say that. If it does, in my book, because I count everything down to the penny, I would actually go into my cash drawer and either make a non-invoice cash in if I'm over, or cash paid out if I'm short. And that actually goes to a financial expense account on my general ledger. And again, I have a video for that too. So then what you do is you say, okay, this is my daily money drop. How much do I want to deposit? Now remember, guys, I typically, like I said, I fill out my deposit slip. And then I say, you know, I want to leave, you know, I want to keep $300 on hand. So I may just say cash left in drawer for tomorrow. I can, you know, reverse engineer this. Say I want to put $300 in the back of my cash drawer. So this just populated my cash drop. So I'm actually going to count out of my drawer $231.96. I'm going to fill that in the cash section of my deposit slip. Okay, so that is frankly what's going to go to the bank. And with these checks, and of course credit cards are done automatically through credit card processing. Thank you very much. And now I have $300 left in my cash drawer for tomorrow. Now, this is where I went wrong for the entire month of January in 2008. This actually used to say post in print, because in my mind, this is the daily book. I thought if I hit this button, this was posting all this money drop stuff, all this money drop action that we just did. I thought this was posting to my bank account. Well, lo and behold, it wasn't. I want to show you something, though, about the different reports that when you hit close and print, that print out. So let's hit print reports.
Hey, Sabrina, can I stop you real quick?
Absolutely.
If let's say, you know, the checks and credit cards, let's say you deposit, or, you know, your credit cards are done on a daily basis. But let's say, for instance, the cash, you hold that until, you know, let's say the end of the week or maybe every 2 weeks, and then you take it to the bank. Is there a holding place that instead of going to the bank, you could hold the cash at another location and then drop it to the bank later on?
This is, again, this is why I'm doing this webinar and spending so much time on this report. It is completely different in MaxxTraxx than MotorTraxx, and I will show you where we hold that money. Now, I could say here, I'm not going to drop any cash. That means that, according to my system, I'm going to have the full $531.96 in my cash drawer until tomorrow. Now, if you're saying, can I, like, take it out of my cash drawer and put it like in a safe. Because remember, we have those different slots in MotorTraxx.
Right.
You know what I mean? You could have some left in the drawer, some left in the safe.
Let's call it a safe for this purpose. Let's say it's a safe.
Right.
Do you have that option here too?
In this system, in this cash drawer report, no, I don't have a place to differentiate where I'm holding that money.
Okay.
So in your mind, because we actually, I think our number was like $300. We actually did try to always keep the cash drawer at about $300. And frankly, did I actually make it to the bank every day? Certainly not. I probably would go to the bank, once a week. But I would actually take money out of the drawer, stick it in an envelope with my deposit slip, and even if I took cash and checks in every day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, with MaxxTraxx, I found it easier to fill out a deposit slip at the end of each day, even though it wasn't going to the bank. And I'll show you why in just a minute, because this is a two-step process. Again, very, very different from MotorTraxx. So if you wanted to are you doing that for the purpose because you want to keep that money available and on hand, or you just don't want to hop down to the bank? What's your motivation?
Well, I just don't want to go to the bank every day to do a cash. So let's say, if let's say I just have a couple $100, I might wait till I have, let's say, $1,000 or something, and then make one trip to the bank. So I don't want my bank account to now give false reports saying that yeah, I deposited the $200 today when really it's not in there.
Right. That's a very good point.
And when you hovered over the cash drop, a little yellow note opened up saying this is the amount to go into the safe. There was like a yellow box open.
Yeah, where isn't it showing up right now?
So that's why I thought, well, how do you tell it where it's going to?
Well, when I show you the bank deposit, and I'll be honest, I'm going to say it right now, and it's going to be on the recording, it's my absolute least favorite part of the system, and that's where all the cash is held in what we call a parenthesis. It's held in one bucket in the banking area. And for me, and this is just because kind of you guys know I'm a little bit of a simpleton, for me it was easier, and you're right, I don't want my bank account to reflect something that isn't going to happen. You know what? I take it back. I guess what I was doing, I was filling out a deposit slip, and I was even showing it as deposited to the bank, but that wasn't what was real in the real world. And you guys know, I preach to you guys all the time, make sure whatever you're doing in the system is mimicking as much in real life as you can. Well, you know what? Then I would, frankly, I would say zero cash drop. And then when I did this daily sales and cash drawer report on Friday, I would have one big cash drop. I would say the cash part of it would all pile up, and at the end of the week I would say, okay, I'm going to leave $100 at the end of the week. And I would take whatever I collected up through that whole week in cash, coin and paper, and process my daily sales and cash flow report with that actual amount. Now what's crazy, is that, do I want to do my checks? Let's see. If I were to go in here and say maybe I don't want to say I accepted that check yet for the day, I guess I could do that. I probably would still count my checks. And I'm going to show you why this is so important here in a minute. So, yeah, I would say I counted my checks. So I would leave this here, but I would leave all my cash at zero. Okay, and then I would close and print. And I'm going to come back to this. We're going to circle back after I show you bank deposit and show you what I'm talking about. Is that okay? Let's do that. So I'm going to let me just go ahead and show you what these different reports look like, and I'm going to show you why this is kind of important. If we click on Print Reports, all of these reports actually can be printed at a later date. I could go back to the Reports icon here on the toolbar and select any one of these reports and put in this date range, whatever, it's usually one day, put in this date range and run that report whenever I want. But there is one report that is a little bit different. And, frankly, again, I'm telling you guys how I did it in my shop, and you guys can think about how you want to do it in your workflow. I actually did print every report, and I do recommend you printing out every single report at least for the first week just to get a flavor of all the information that comes out on these reports. And you'll notice some of them will actually be blank, and you actually have to say, no report, continue on, yes. But kind of what's nice about this is I would take my whole world. I would take my batch report for my credit card machine, my deposit slips. I actually went so far, I actually photocopied every single check I ever received. And I would take all of these reports, and I would staple them together, and that would be like my whole world financially for each day. So if for any reason I ever had to go back and recreate what happened 2 weeks ago, or better yet, if I was on vacation, I would tell my guys, take all your invoices, all your batch, all your checks, cash, everything, throw it in one manila envelope, date it, stick it on my desk, and when I got back from vacation, I may have 5 envelopes on my desk, and I could go back because I can date these guys, I can date these whenever I want, this date range. And I would just go back and recreate each day at a time. That way, if anything kind of was funny, or I was off, my drawer was off, my visas were off, it's so much easier to have everything all grouped one day at a time if you have to go out and tease out information. So I want to look at these really quick, and I want to show you what they look like on a preview. Okay, so get daily cash, I'm going to click on preview. Now again, remember, any of these reports you can print after the fact. There is one difference. This report right here, I'm going to go back to full size. This is what the full page looks like. Now the different, and we'll go back to page 1. Okay, page 1, which is our sales and payments. Page 2 is anything that we paid out of our cash drawer, any transactions. And page 3, this is what I call the magic box. This one box only prints out, let me bring it up, make it bigger. This one box only prints out when you print the report out of the daily sales and cash drawer report. So if I were to go back into, remember the reports icon on the toolbar and print this report, this magic box isn't here. And this actually, this magic box is what I use to make my bank deposit, to make sure I'm accurate. So what are we saying? We're saying that in the cash drop, I actually didn't drop any cash, right? Because we're going to wait till Friday. We're going to wait till the end of the week. Check drop, you know, technically, did I put this check in the bank? No. But did I receive it, and did I fill out a deposit slip for this? Yes, I did. Because you can't tease these out. And again, I'll explain to you in a minute why. Credit card drop is, of course, what the batch puts in your bank account automatically for you, right? And then I have remaining cash in my drawer. And that's correct. I'm actually going to hold on to this cash till the end of the week. And this will, of course, every day will build up bigger and bigger and bigger till I get to Friday, hopefully. That's our goal. So let's get out of here. So of all these reports, this daily sales and cash drawer financial summary has that magic box. And so it's, if nothing else, you want to print this report. But all of these other reports, this is important. These open repair orders and parts invoices, if somebody were to work in your shop, and not like this ever happens to anybody on this phone call, but if you were out of the office, absentee owner, you go on vacation, you could see what was an open repair order on Monday that all of a sudden doesn't even show up on Tuesday or Wednesday. What happened to that ticket? Did somebody pay cash and somebody pocket, void the RO and pocket the money? What's nice in MaxxTraxx is nothing can be voided or gotten rid of without leaving a trail. And people say, well, it's so much easier just to do all this in QuickBooks. Well, you can do a lot of funny business in QuickBooks. And unfortunately, I worked for a shop that before I got there, lost, $58,000 to some funny business because of QuickBooks. Whereas in MaxxTraxx, you guys know in MotorTraxx, it's a closed system. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt. It's more in MotorTraxx than MaxxTraxx, that's for sure, but it still will always leave you a paper trail. So the open repair orders and invoices, I think it's a worthwhile report. Paid, this lets you know what got paid through. Anything voided or modified, look at these, really important. So you know if anything has actually been, monkeyed around in your shop. And of course, sometimes this happens. Sometimes somebody comes back and they drive away and something happens to their car and you need to give them a credit. You want to void their RO and give them back their check, and then they write you a fresh check. It happens. so you can avoid it and repost it, right? And this will just keep track of it. Handy little list of checks received. Cash drawer details, again, just gives you each method of payment broken down for that day. And this is nice, too. Paid repair orders with part markup. This is just a nice, fresh little report you get to look at the end of the day that says how profitable you were on each job at the end of the day. Now, is it an exact science? No, because you guys know as well as I do, oil changes are kind of loss leaders, and if you have kits, sometimes your profit, or let me back up, not kits, menu priced labors do not calculate profitability like flat rate labors, and that's a whole different, ball of wax that we can talk about, and I do have videos that talk about menu price labors and flat rate labors that addresses the profitability issue. But it's a great guideline. It lets you know, I did pretty good on this job. I kind of lost my butt on that tranny job, or, you get a kind of a gut feel. So that's a little bit about the report. So I'm going to go back and say, guys, when you are using your practice version, I would print out a couple of these, and certainly when you go live, print these out and just do all the reports for a week or two just to get a feel of the information. And then you may say, I really don't care about this one, and this one. I just want the rest. So I'm going to go ahead and close that right now. So what happens? Let me back up. This used to say post and print. This is technically all you're doing, closing, and I mean just closing this screen. It's like hitting this little red X, closing and printing these reports, because this information doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't post to your general ledger. It's not posting sales. It's not posting expenses. It's not posting payments. It's doing nothing. It is simply printing out those reports for you. And what happened, I would hit close and print. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and hit close, and it says, yes, you've chosen to leave $531.96 in my cash drawer. Is this correct? Yes. And then I'm going to go ahead and close because I'm not going to actually really print these reports. But if I wanted to, I could go right back into daily sales, change my date range. I don't remember what it was, like July 12th or something, and through today or through yesterday. And I could look at the exact same, actually it must have been through like July 1st. I could go through the exact same whole rigmarole again. Nothing's changed. That didn't post anywhere. I could reprint that over and over and over and over again. Now, the only difference is if I manually go back into this daily sales and change my dates, because remember I said if you do it every day, the dates are going to be correct, like they are right here. At the end of the day, my dates would be correct. Of course, nothing will show up except for that one that I just posted when everybody was watching when I go back in my cash drawer. But what's nice is that your beginning cash drawer is already there. You don't have to manually enter it. And if you ever did have to manually enter it, guys, just look at your previous report, what the number was down here, and your cash left in drawer for tomorrow amount, and you manually enter it in. But that's your workflow. You're going to go ahead, and again, it's a pretty quick deal. You go in here, you count your cash, count your visas, tag them, everything looks good, close and print your report. This is just saying, and this is a good warning. Let me review it real quick. You have chosen to post the cash drawer for today's date. This will post this drawer to the end of today. Are you sure you want to continue? Now, the thing is it may be saying, hey, guys, you got 5 more working hours, because remember the system knows I'm open till 6. So it's saying, well, wait a minute, do you really want to post your daily sales report? You guys have a lot more work to do. So that, that typically you do this at the end of the day, or you do it the next morning for the day before. You guys, again, you have that flexibility. So I'm going to say, do I want to continue? Yes. And I've chose to leave $0 in my cash drawer. That's fine. So you can see I could reprint that over and over and over again. It doesn't go anywhere like the daily book. Now, I thought it did, so I went into my banking. I went into my Reconcile bank account, clicked Select to reconcile my month of January. This is like February 5th. And I have a lot of stuff in here, but in that, back then when I was using this for real, nothing was in here. I had a bunch of checks that said like minus $70,000. I had no deposits. I was devastated. I called Rhonda. What happened? I mean, she laughed at me. She said, oh, Sabrina, you just never did your daily deposit. So guys, it's a two-step process. After you use your daily sales, and remember that magic box of information, I actually would have that sitting on my desk with my deposit slip, and then I would jump into banking and click on Make Bank Deposit. And you just decide which account. Now this is why it's a two-step process, because you have an option to pick here which bank account is that deposit going into. Now most shops actually just have one or maybe two. And anyways, your deposits usually always just go into your primary account. So let's just say one and click Select. So then what you would do, you would say, okay, yeah, I got this check, this check, this check. Yep, that's good. Oh, yeah, and here's my Discover. Because remember, this is what we checked off in our daily sales report. And I check all these off. Yep, we're good to go. And then this is the cash. Remember, guys, I told you the cash is handled a little bit differently. So all the money that you have maybe in your envelope ready to go to the bank with the deposit slip, and your cash that you may have in a safe, and the cash that you have in the cash drawer is all held in this parentheses. We actually don't have it broken down and itemized up here. And you know, I used to think that, why can't I just have a section up here that says cash? You know, just like this says check. Why can't I have, I received some cash in here, and I received some cash in here. The problem is there's payouts. And because that cash and the payouts, again, remember, happen in the money bag, guys, because cash is paid out as well, they kind of pool it all right in here. So then all I have to do is say, well, how much I actually deposited was $531.96. And then I would click Next, and then I would have like $200 left in here. And then if I click the Next button, I just verify the date of my deposit and then post and close. Now, I actually did this in the beginning, and I didn't care for it, and I'll tell you why. If I were to do this deposit, when I went to reconcile my bank statements, it's going to throw all my cash, checks, visas, Discover, everything in one big bundle. Well, that's not how it's going to show up on your bank statement, right? So I'm going to hit Cancel. Let's go back. Cancel without saving yes. I would go back into banking, make bank deposit, select checking account 1. I actually would take my checks in cash and let's say, you know, $531.96. Because remember, I've got my magic box in front of me that tells me how much my deposit was going to be, and I have my filled out deposit slip. This is my workflow. So between these checks that I'm cashing and this cash, well, that's sweet. It's a $10,000 deposit. So I'm going to click Next. And let's say I actually deposited yesterday. Let's just for fun, I could change my date. And I'm going to say Post and add another. And I'll show you in a minute why I did this. And then you have an option here. Frankly, I never use this, but I know a lot of shops do. It's kind of cool. You can print a deposit slip. Now, some banks actually accept this deposit slip. My bank said, no, you got to fill out, you know, the carbon one that, you know, was specifically for their bank. But some people will let you just print out this deposit slip and take it into your bank or a credit union or whatever and make your deposit. And you also have another report that says print deposit item detail, and this gives you the customer name, what RO it paid and how it was paid, what payment method. And again, frankly, I personally didn't use this, but I know a lot of shops that do. So I'm just going to go ahead and say don't print, obviously, since you couldn't see it on the video or on the screen anyway. But then it would take me right back in to my make a deposit, select my same checking account, but see first of all, look at cash to deposit. I only have $200 left, right? Because I deposited $531 on my deposit slip, and the checks are gone. Now, then I would go ahead and do all these credit cards. And you know what? I didn't do all of them. I would do my Visa, MaxxTraxx, and Discover, because my credit card processing company would dump those all in together. And then I would hit Next, and I'll show you that in a minute. But let's say I had some American Express. Now, actually, I would do, again, Visa, MaxxTraxx, Discover together, and then I would do a separate deposit. Let's pretend I had one. Let's say Next. Let's say I actually deposited yesterday. I'm going to say Post and add another. And don't print. So if I were to go back in here, if I had American Express, I would do it separately. And frankly, at the time, the credit card processing company I was using, if I took 5 American Express in one day, it still would show up as 5 individual deposits on my bank statement. So what I would click in the select column for that American Express, next, change the date, go back in, click the next American Express, click next, do the date. And the reason why, now when I go back into my banking, reconcile bank account, when I go to reconcile those deposits, you'll see there's one. Remember, this will match my actual physical deposit that I walked into the bank. And this one down here would match what the credit card company dumped in my batch that night. Does that make sense, guys? You have a lot of flexibility here as to, how you want to do that. You could bump, I have actually, God bless them, I do have this one shop who would do it 1 week at a time. He would just go through and take make the bank deposit. He would take all his Visas for the week, all his MasterCards for the week, and he would dump it all. I'm like, really, Bill? Really? You're going to do that and match it up on your statement at the end of the month? He says, yeah, sure, Sabrina. It's no big deal. So it's a personal thing. It's really up to you. But I found this as best practice. This worked best for me. And, guys, if I'm in this reconciled bank account or in my check register, I think it'll work from here. If I hit Edit, okay, so if I highlight it and hit the Edit button, it says this is a Visa, Discover, a Visa. So if you guys need to see some detail on that, and let's go back to the physical bank deposit one. And I'm going to click, highlight it and click Edit. You can see here's my cash, and here are those 3 checks, the 3 checks that I received and put on that bank deposit. So by doing that, that way when you get to the end of the month to do your bank reconciliation, it's in there, number 1. And number 2, your check register, if you do it every day, is always going to have an accurate balance. Now, as we had that question earlier, we said, well, wait a minute. What if you actually only go to the bank once a week? Let me show you something. By the way, I love this. This is amazing to me. If I highlight this bank deposit and hit Void, it'll show right back up in my bank deposit. And actually, two or more items here I want to share with you. What's the difference between delete and void? Why would you hit delete? Why would you hit void? If you hit delete, it won't show on the screen anymore unless you click Show Deleted Items. You see these up here that just appeared? Let's see, I'm going to uncheck the box and see those are gone. I'll do it again, Show Deleted Items. So you can see it cleans it up a little bit. You can see this one is a void. If you void it, it doesn't ever clean up. So I'm going to go ahead and hit delete on this one. Are you sure you want to delete this deposit? It's no longer visible in the register. Yes. And what happens to this deposit? Remember 10 grand. I go back into banking, make bank deposit. Voila, there it is. There's my 3 checks. There's my cash. So if you guys ever make a boo-boo, so easy to fix, okay? So easy to fix. So the reason why I wanted to bring this up is remember how I said you can go in here, do all your checks and your cash, make a bank deposit. You could theoretically just come in here once a day and just click off your Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express, the ones that are here, and do a bank deposit. Remember, click Next, make a bank deposit. And then at the end of the week, you could go in here and click off all your checks and say, yes, I actually want to deposit all $731.96 because I don't want to leave anything in the cash drawer. You could do that. And that will keep your checking account accurate. Now, where that will deviate a little bit, guys, and you'll remember this. I'm going to cancel out of here. That will deviate slightly from your daily sales report. Now, your daily sales report, let's go back and change it to the previous date so we have content to look at again. Let's make it through, through today again. Now remember, if we clicked on balance drawer, we counted checks. Now, that it's not a big deal. Remember, these checks don't go anywhere, but what is kind of nice about this, if we went in here and said, yes, I received this check, we could at least say that, yes, I did physically count that check over here. I did actually physically count that check on Wednesday, even though I may not deposit it on Friday. Does that make sense?
So the daily sales in cash is just a form. It's just a worksheet.
This is a glorified pen and paper. It is a glorified pen and paper that says, yep, at the end of the day, I counted my checks, I counted my Visa, MaxxTraxx receipts, and I counted the cash drawer, my cash drawer. That's all this is. And you know what's nice is you do get to print out these reports if you kind of just want to get a flavor of how you did it every day. You wanted to see any cash drawer transactions for the day. Yeah. So again, I'm backing up. So where I went terribly, terribly, terribly wrong is I thought when I was hitting this button that, honestly, guys, Scott System used to say, post and print. I thought it was actually posting anything. The only thing that I was really posting was the cash left in the drawer for tomorrow. That's really all I was posting. So I do want to...
Was I paying you when you were doing that?
Yes, you were. Anyway. Yes. So, no, we're not going to post that. Now, I do want to show you on for the accounting people, which looks like just about, I don't know, 2/3 of the folks on the call are, paying attention to your general ledger and your income and expense statement. On the general ledger, if I click on accounting on the menu bar and I click on chart of accounts, we can actually look into each one of our chart of accounts one at a time. So I can double click on, so what was under that make bank deposit list, guys? Remember we said where exactly is cash in the drawer, cash in the bank, checks on hand. Actually, even those Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express are held in this undeposited funds account until we do that make bank deposit. Now, frankly, if I had looked at this in the first week of February, I would have seen, oh, shoot, you have $85,000 that needs to be deposited. But if I double-click on this, this actually will say that I'm actually still in undeposited funds somewhere floating around our shop. I actually have $10,578.76. Now, theoretically, is part of that possibly in a credit card form? Yes, and that's going to happen. So some people would say to me, Sabrina, if I go to the bank once a week, why don't I just do my daily sales report once a week? I said, is there a bank deposit happening every day? They're like, no, I go once a week. I said, is your credit card company making a deposit every day? Well, yeah, they are. So I go back to run a daily sales every day and go into banking and do a bank deposit. And if nothing else, there are shops. I'll tell you right now, there are shops using MaxxTraxx that do not use this feature at all. And, actually there's a handful of shops out there that do not handle cash. They never receive payments in cash. Their employee wants it in advance. They have to call their wife. We don't pay cash for parts. We don't pay cash for lunch. We write checks for everything. So they don't use a daily sales report. So theoretically, you could take your batch report, your credit card machine batch report, and your deposit slip and go right into banking and click on make bank deposit and just use that information to select and make your deposit. You definitely have that. But you guys, it's a great tool. This daily sales, it's a great tool to be able to go back and reference activity that happens. The last couple of shops that we've worked at, we've often had third parties, charities, friends, relatives that would make payment on behalf for a customer. So what would happen is let's say a check bounces and you find out 2 weeks from now some check bounced and it's from, a company we had, it's called Tri-Lakes Cares. Well, that's the charity. And if their check bounced, I need to know what customer that was for. Well, I don't know. So I would go back, figure out what day I deposited it, and I would have a whole record. Oh, that paid for, Jonathan Altman's job. So by having this daily sales report, it helps you untease what happened weeks ago when there's no way I could remember that kind of thing. So I found it actually very, very handy and you just pull it out of the drawer, pull the staple, lay it all out on the table, and figure out what's going on. And I think it's a very worthwhile report. As I mentioned, under reports, you still can click on Service Counter, and you'll notice here's our cash drawer details, modified cash drawer transactions, voided cash drawer transactions, paid repair orders with part markup. These should all look familiar because, yes, all of these reports were available in our daily sales and cash drawer report list. Now, again, the only one that's different is the daily summary is not going to have, oops, I'm going to go up to, remember, this one does not have the magic box, which I thought was it was like the one thing I referenced at the end of every day. Because you guys might recognize this. This is the one that showed you your sales summary for the day, any cash drawer transactions, and then we had, oh no, it's full size, a big magic box here, and this information actually was here listed on the bottom. So because that, remember, that was your actual glorified pen and paper that you used that day to count all your payments received, not just cash, all your checks received, credit cards received, everything. So that's where that comes into play. So I hope I haven't confused you guys too much. There's, again, a lot of workflow theory that was put into this feature when they wrote MaxxTraxx. Again, it's just a different workflow from MotorTraxx. And the other thing that is really, really cool is that if you go into this cash drawer money bag, okay, remember, if any money ever goes out of your cash, physically out of your cash drawer, you probably should click on the money bag and do the cash payout right there. Right there, Pizza Hut, lunch, for a snap on training or, whatever's going on in the shop. And, $35 for pizza or whatever. And, let's see, office meals, for example, okay? Do it right away. And if you haven't done it right away, you can always get to the money bag at the end of the day. But what's kind of cool is you, let me cash this Honda out. Let's say I cash this Honda out. Look at all those short sales, though, we would have. Wouldn't that be terrible? Oops, pay. Post with current costs. That's okay. I'm ignoring all my warnings. So let's say I paid American Express. Okay, remember, guys, I said nothing. There's two things that you can't ever reverse in MaxxTraxx. If you avoid an RO, it's gone forever. If you restock a parts invoice to the wrong vendor, you actually have to write a credit. Everything else, you pretty much can very simply go back into the cash drawer, view my current cash drawer transactions. I can do it for either today, or I could change any date range I want. And I can say, you know what, I blew it. That wasn't American Express. It was Discover. I can hit void payment. And what this is doing, okay, a couple things. This is a big deal. When you click void payment, you are taking it out of your sales, off of your chart of accounts, out of your income, is putting the parts back into inventory, until it's posted. The payment that is just getting dumped into, remember, undeposited funds, that's been taken out. So when we click this void payment, yes, I want to void it, all that's reversed in real time. Remember, in MotorTraxx, that would have been a batched item that you couldn't unbatch by itself. But in MaxxTraxx, you can. And then you just click the refresh button here, and voila, there it is again. And you could repost it. You could say, let's say I voided their American Express transaction and give them a credit or whatever. You could do whatever you want. And just keep in mind, guys, the closer you can get your computer entries to what you're doing every day in real life, the more accurate your information. Garbage in, garbage out. You want to keep it as closely aligned to what's actually happening. Now, if you're trying to finagle something, like I had this last week. He's like, how do I refund a customer? She paid the bill, but then the insurance company came behind her and actually gave me a payment. How do I post that payment? Well, actually, we went into the customer's account, wrote her a credit, wrote her a check, to refund her money, and then we wrote another invoice using the system balancing account that equaled that credit that I just wrote, and then I posted the insurance company's check. So instead of thinking, how the heck do I do that and keep my books straight, that's where you guys need to stop and say, look, I do this once or twice a year, call tech support, let us walk you through it, because I'd rather you keep your books straight and keep you guys happy and keep those numbers correct, especially because I'm all about the accounting, than have you guys come up with some finagling way. Well, let's see, if I go into accounting and do a general journal entry, I honestly have to say, unless you are a CPA or an accounting guru, you really should rarely ever create a general journal entry. Because if you are creating a general journal entry, you're bypassing something else in the system. And if you're bypassing that, then it means something else in the system isn't going to be correct anymore. I could have created a general journal entry and forced that insurance company's payment into my checking account. I could have forced it in there. In fact, the system, though, is getting tighter and tighter. They don't let you do a lot of things that you're not supposed to. But then what would have happened? I would have, had to refund her a check, and then it would have had a credit on her account. Well, that would be wrong. So, again, I'm just saying in the beginning, a lot of this stuff, there's so much power in MaxxTraxx to be able to keep your accounting straight. If you guys aren't sure, I'm always here to give me an email or click on support chat, get someone to help you, call into tech support, ask them how to do it correctly. And you know what? If you only do it once or twice a year, that's what you pay us for. You don't need to remember how to do it. We're here to help you out with those couple little things, those oddball things that happen. So any questions on daily sales report, make bank deposit? Any questions there?
What about if you receive like an ROA for a customer that has a charge?
You actually, good question. If you do a credit on account, deposit on account, or want to just pay the customer's bill, I didn't think this was intuitive. You actually go into customer search and you look up their customer record. So you click on customer search, put in their name, and you can go under customer options and do a deposit on account. Let's say I know I got a big job coming up, so I'm going to go ahead and get the money out of my checking account because I'll just spend it, and I'm going to give you guys a check, and it's for future, or you know what it's going to be, snow tires and alignment. That way I even know what the deposit on account was for, and I can actually print a receipt. So here, now I have a credit available of $1,000. Well, actually, I had $50 there before. And same thing. Let's say somebody walks in, or you receive a check in the mail from a fleet or somebody who's on charge with you. You go into customer search, you look up their name, and you go to customer options, and you pay. You pay their AR invoices. Tag their invoices, and click next. Oh, let's say I'm making a $200 payment. I could always edit this. I could always highlight this and edit the amount to pay. And I don't know exactly what to say. It's like $90. I'm going to pay $90 instead. They're $201.55. So I can edit the amount that I'm going to pay and click next, and I'm going to pay that with Discover. Apply payment. And I can, again, print my customer receipt. And again, so I just, now I actually go back into customer options, pay. See, I have a partial. This one, the original amount was $118, but I paid, $90 of it, so I have $28 left. So that's how that works. If you guys have a customer who is also a vendor, love this feature because, we did that. Somebody was going to go, work on the plumbing in, our shop sink got plugged and they need to repipe it or something. We could create a customer here under customer options, also make them view edit record type, also make them a vendor. And if I made them a vendor and I had a charge with them, I could actually use the amount that I owe them and we could actually trade. So kind of involves, I think I did a training video on that. I'm pretty sure I did. This is a very, very cool feature, and we are going to do a dedicated webinar on how to set this up. We're going to do that, I think, the second week in September, how to set up customers as vendors, as employees. So that's something we'll be showing you how to do, and I'll show you how to do the payments in that webinar, but I do think we have a training video for that as well. So that's a little bit about how to receive a payment from a customer payment. Any other questions? You know, I could go into a lot of the other accounting stuff right now, but I think the real critical stuff was the daily sales and the make bank deposit. We do actually have a video on the website on how to reconcile your bank account, and we did a webinar in July on how to do reconcile bank account, and I got some great questions in that webinar, by the way. So if you guys want to, peek at that, it's the kind of thing that I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk about this and I'm going to talk about this again next week. I really encourage you guys to get a practice version and get your data from MotorTraxx loaded. So again, 3 reasons. You get to see what your converted data looks like. You get to practice on your own stuff, your own customers, your own their vehicles, your own vendors and payables, and you get a chance to go through and practice the setup. Go into setups. Remember, we covered this, and we're going to go into detail, by the way, next week. And by the way, if you guys are watching this video and you haven't been on the other 2 webinars, remember, if you put in an order form with Rhonda and you say code word Orion, which everybody probably knows by now is my dog, code word Orion, you guys, we waive the $129 conversion fee because you've taken your precious time to spend it with us today and learn more about the features. So combination of practice version and watching the training videos and watching some of those archived webinars, I think will start getting this, getting this to be more second nature. And the other thing is just try to recreate 1 RO a day. With that practice version, we don't want you running your business with it at all. We want you doing everything in MotorTraxx, especially since just about everybody on this call is using full accounting. You don't want to mess up your books in MotorTraxx, heaven forbid. But it's a great exercise to take an RO, soup to nuts, an RO from MotorTraxx and recreate it in MaxxTraxx, and that way you make sure your pricing matrices is set up correctly, your labor codes, your supply charges, your sales tax, and if you can get it all the way through, and then after you've done 1 RO a day for a week or 2, go in there and play with the daily sales. Run a daily sales report, because then you're going to have, content in there to play with. You'll probably want to do, like I did here, do 2 weeks worth so you have some content. Actually, I have to go back. I can't do a future day. So you want to have some content in there to play with. And try this out. Do a balance drawer, make a bank deposit, and, once you get comfortable with this, now a lot of people will say, at what point do I go from practice to going live? Well, I'll tell you right now, if you are comfortable writing a repair order soup to nuts, you can go live, because the daily sales and cash flow report, frankly, I've worked with 2 shops that just went live in July, or no, August 1st. They actually didn't even do a daily sales and cash flow report, neither of them, for the first week. It was just too much. It was just too much. And what was kind of cool is when we finally sat down, I dialed into their machine. We sat there for about 2 hours, and we took 1 day at a time. And we actually did a bunch of these daily sales and cash flow reports in a row because we had so many of them piled up. Sometimes that's a good way to do it because, number one, you got real data. It makes more sense. And then if you do 5 in a row, you got to practice them over and over and over, and then you kind of get it under your belt. Everything else in the accounting, from the make bank deposit to paying bills to writing checks, it's a big difference to be able to do all this with a little time on your hands. You can look at a training video and then write a check. You could jump in, watch a training video, and then pay some bills. Or, you watch a training video and do your daily sales report. And that you're not under pressure. You can reference the manual. But I do think to save yourself a lot of heartache, I know I was this way, you really want to be comfortable writing a repair order soup to nuts, because that you don't have the flexibility of time. You've got customers hollering at you. You got to cash them out. You got to get through it. And just, that takes a couple days. And usually by the third or fourth day, first day is always crazy, guys. Second day, you're like, why the heck did I ever switch? But by the end of the week, that part's going to be fine. And as far as setting up all of the other accounting, because since we're talking about accounting today, you might remember from the Getting Started guide, there's a lot of things in the accounting you don't have to have set up right away. We can set up the following week and backdate it. Again, beauty of SQL. If we had MotorTraxx, we didn't have that luxury because we had to close our daily book every day, right? But beauty of MaxxTraxx is we have that flexibility to go back and backdate that kind of thing. So I wouldn't worry about it. Get your practice version, learn how to write the ROs, and the rest of the stuff will fall into place. Any questions on all that stuff we covered today? Okay, guys. So next week, fourth week of the four-part series, we're going to be talking about setups. We're going to be talking a little bit about any questions that have come up over the last month. Just want to touch bases on the Getting Started guide one more time just to make sure you guys know how to use the checklists. And then what we're going to do, and I'm not sure what day in September, we are, of course, this has been a very, very long webinar because you guys had to work with our technical issues for the first half hour, but Rex and I are going to have a 2-hour webinar in September that is going to go over setting up your general ledger. And it's actually not just for MotorTraxx and MaxxTraxx users. We have a lot of MaxxTraxx users out there that have never really gotten their general ledger dialed in to begin with. They've been using their sales numbers and they've been, using their sales tax report, but their income and expense statement is not where we want it to be. So what we're going to be doing in that 2-hour marathon, again, we're going to record it in the archive, is we're going to go over every single solitary general ledger account and explain how it's used, where the information flows in and out of, why to use these, why not. One thing I do want to throw at you, in MotorTraxx, we do actually have a petty cash account right in our daily book. Remember, we can move it from the cash drawer. We actually call it cash drawer, and then we have a cash box, and then we have a safe, and then we drop it to bank. I don't recommend in MaxxTraxx, and this is another big deal, I don't recommend using the petty cash. I recommend leaving the cash that you have in your cash drawer in the undeposited funds account. And you guys remember that showed up in the parentheses? Remember the parentheses in the lower right corner? And the reason why is MaxxTraxx actually doesn't have an easy way to flow money in and out of the petty cash account. In reality, the only way to do it is through a general journal entry. And you guys remember, I said, if you are doing a general journal entry, wait a minute, because you're bypassing something. So what I like to do, and I definitely think this, I really, really strongly encourage you to do this, in the banking, when you make a bank deposit, leave the money in this parentheses. Because this money in this parentheses right here, cash to deposit, and all this stuff on this screen, this total amount here, let's say I were to select all and select, what, 696.96, right? If I were to deposit the whole shooting match, let me write this number down, 11745.31. Let's see if, I don't know if this is correct in my demo version. If I go into my accounting, chart of accounts, and look at my undeposited funds, yep, there it is, 11,745.31. Okay, so that again is in this 11,000 undeposited funds account. It's really, it's kind of like the, he's kind of like, I think in MotorTraxx it was like our 19,800 account, I think it was. Is that what it was on the general ledger? It's your holding bin. And it's all this great functionality to make bank deposits. Every time you post an RO, every time you write a check, or actually every time you use, not write a check, that's different, but every time you do the cash drawer, what's this coming out of when we do a cash payout? It's coming out of this 1,100 account, 11,000 account, undeposited funds.
So Sabrina, how would you then go from the deposit from the undeposited funds to, let's say, checking account number 1?
And make bank deposit. Remember, banking, make bank deposit. What's actually happening here when you tag this and you're clicking next? It's because I voided it and I'm reposting it again. Remember that, guys? It actually, what happens if I were to hit post and close, what's happening right there? In fact, let's do it. It's $9,846.80. If I go up to accounting, click on my chart of accounts, click on undeposited funds, it's taken it out of here, because remember this was 11,000, and it's putting it in here. Right here, 9,846.80. So that feature, the Make Bank Deposit feature, is moving money in between general ledger accounts. In fact, here's another one. Let's say, what do we have in undeposited funds? Let's say it's $1,898.51. Okay, I'm going to do a fun one. I'm going to go into the money bag, cash drawer. I'm going to do a cash paid out for forget it, $898.51. And, let's say John Jones. He's my, such a great typist. This is my employee. It's an employee advance. It's an advance till payday or whatever. And I hit finish. Check this out. If I go back into accounting, chart of accounts, click on undeposited funds, $1,000. So anything that anything that you do under Make Bank Deposit, anything that goes in the cash drawer, is going to affect. It's going to go from the undeposited funds. Actually, it went to receivables, employee advances. That's where that money goes to. I had $898, actually $1,898, and I left $1,000 in the undeposited funds. And I actually now have receivables, employee advances. In fact, there it is right now, $898.51. So everything is pretty much got a feature somewhere on this main page, this main dashboard, that's going to do all of your bookkeeping for you. It's all done, so you don't want to be fooling around with your general. Again, Bill, my one guy that does his big bank deposit once a week, the guy is just brilliant, and he just started getting in here, and he did like literally 300 transactions, all using the general journal entry. I'm like, oh gosh, Bill, this is going to be fun. And it took us about a day, probably 4 or 5 hours, to go back and reverse everything he did, because he was posting his payments and everything by doing a general journal entry. However, he had all these customers that looked like they still owed him money. Well, they didn't owe him money. He was bypassing posting a customer payment, right? Okay, here's another one. I'll show you one more example of this accounting. And again, we'll be going through a lot of this in depth in September in that 2-hour webinar with Rex on with me. So let's look at undeposited funds. We're at $1,000, right? $1,000 right now. If we were, brilliant, glad you brought this up. Let's say, okay, this bill right here is $243.78. I'm going to close and pay it. Whoops, close and pay, post with current. Look at me bypassing all the rules, breaking all the rules. Okay, I'm going to do Discover, apply payment, again, $243.78. Again, this was batched in MotorTraxx. Now I go to accounting, chart of accounts, undeposited funds. It's no longer 1,000. There's my 243. So you can see everything is happening in real time in MaxxTraxx, real time. And it's saying, okay, Sabrina, you've got this in undeposited funds. Okay, Sabrina, this Discover payment is going to go into your bank automatically without you doing a darn thing, right? So then what do you have to do? You have to go into banking, make bank deposit. Yeah, put it into checking account 1. Yep, that's where it's going to go automatically for me. Click on my 243. Here it is, right? Click next. I'll I'm glad this came up. This cash to deposit is negative. If this goes negative, you could see the system isn't going to let me do a deposit because it says you entered 0 cash to deposit, but the undeposited funds account is negative. It only has a negative amount available. It doesn't even have 0. You can't make it a cash deposit. What happens when you do that is you somewhere in the system have made a payment, obviously a cash paid out or something, or I've maybe paid an AP and I said I paid it with cash when I really didn't have that cash to pay. All you have to do is look in your current cash transaction, see it's paid out, and void it. You sure you want to void it? Yeah. Because I never had that much money to give away anyway. So now when I go back into my banking, make bank deposit, you can see it's a positive number again. So if this ever goes negative, it just means something got paid out in the money bag by cash that really didn't happen. I had this happen to a shop actually last week. They actually were trying to clear out some of their beginning balances. They went live April 1st, and they were trying to clear out some of their beginning balances. Instead of writing a credit for, they were, we'll get into this later when you guys are doing setup. In fact, we'll talk about it next week. But they were trying to clear out some stuff that transferred over from MotorTraxx. It was paid before their data converted, but they converted the data without posting that transaction. Actually, it was paid March 31st, but it made it look like they still owed it as of April 1st, and they didn't. So accidentally, instead of tagging the credit that we wrote to clear it out, she did cash paid out, and it was like for 2 transactions for $2,000 apiece. She was like, shoot, Sabrina, my cash drawer, when I go to make bank deposit, this one here, this said like negative $4,000. And she's like, oh my gosh, what happened? What happened? And, of course, I went back into the money bag. I looked for it in the last day or two, couldn't find it. Ended up putting it the year before, and voila, I found it from March. And then all I had to do was void it. So I'm jumping around. I'm throwing a lot of things at you guys, and I don't expect you to remember it. But what I'd rather happen when you guys kind of hit a wall, and again, it's because I'm such an accounting junkie, and I want your books to be as beautiful as possible, call us or call me. This is my favorite part of the job. I am here to help you keep this puzzle perfect, keep all the pieces in play. So those are, and you'll run into these. I ran into these because you guys asked some great questions. But if something, something goes a little bit sideways, you can fix it in MaxxTraxx. Not a big deal. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and break it off. Thank you so much for hanging in on this webinar. I am going to send a follow-up email if you have any questions and or want, explanations or clarification on things I talked about today. Excuse me, send me an email, and I'm going to put some links into those really, really key training videos. The daily sales and cash flow report is one training video. The make bank deposit is another training video. And there's a third one. These are, I think they're just called cash flow transactions is what's called. I'll get you a link to that one as well, because you'll use these on a regular basis if you guys carry cash. Like I said, a few shops don't even fool around with cash. I personally can't understand it. Our cash drawer was just open for anybody. If you had a yellow sticky with an IOU, you could take whatever you wanted. It was probably too loose, but that was just the way that we worked. We were a family, and we worked that way. But I'm going to direct you to I'll have an archive video up tonight. I'm going to direct you to those 3 training videos, by the way, and I hope to have you guys on next week. And that is going to be much more interactive. We're even going to see if we may switch from GoToWebinar to somebody else, just because these technical issues, I really apologize for them, and they're really unacceptable. So we'll see what we can do there. And you guys have a great week. And feel free to call us if you want to get a practice version loaded this week. Rhonda's available, okay?
Thanks,
okay,
Sabrina.
guys. Yeah.
You for us MotorTraxx users, you've gone over the RO and stuff, but you haven't really covered the parts counter side of it, like putting an item in and just some things that MotorTraxx has. Are you going to go over that next week at all, or
you know what? I will
really?
Make it a point. I'll touch on the parts counter next week. Absolutely.
because I got a lot of questions on that we're doing here on
Absolutely.
MotorTraxx. Okay.
It's going to be the catch-all. It's going to be, hopefully you guys will have come up with a lot of questions over the last 3 weeks, and we're going to discuss that. The only other thing, like I said, I want to just touch on some of the setups again, so you guys kind of have that more fresh in your mind. So yeah, questions next week and setups, but next webinar is really for you guys. So bring those questions in or email them ahead of time, and I'll make sure to get them covered.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You guys have a great week. We'll talk to you next time. Okay,
Bye.
bye.